What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 61st episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined once again by my good pal Ainsley Bowden of Seasoned Gaming. Ains, how are you doing on this fine Saturday?
What is happening, dude? I am good, man. I don't think I could be a lot better, honestly. Like
Yeah?
I had yesterday off. We get some great new games. We got Kirby, we got Ghostwire, we got Tiny Tina's all in one day. We got
Oh,
Evil Dead beta. I just sat at home last night, had some drinks, played some games. Weather's beautiful. It's nothing to complain about, man. It's beautiful.
dude, that's exactly how I feel. This Friday was so stacked with game releases, so many exciting things to dive into and to play. Obviously, Evil Dead the game, obviously Kirby, Ghostwire Tokyo, Tiny Tina. It was a ridiculous Friday. It was a
Yeah,
great way to kick off the weekend, and I'm
crazy.
excited to have you on the show today so we can talk about all the gaming news of the week. We're going to be diving into our thoughts on the first episode of the Halo TV series. We're going to be
Yeah.
talking about the growth of Xbox Game Pass and indies per Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer at GDC. We're going to be hosting an epic battle of the Xbox mascots. So if you're joining us live, we're going to have some fun. We are going to pit iconic Xbox characters head to head and vote on the top 5 most iconic Xbox mascots. So if you're watching now, stick around because that's going to be a great kind of climax and a fun way to kick off the rest of this weekend. But before we dive into all of that, Ains, for the amazing people joining us today, let them know who you are and where they can find you.
Yeah, man. I'm the editor in chief over at Season Gaming. Just an independent outlet that covers all gaming platforms. So, obviously, we talk a lot about Xbox, but we cover everything. And our thing really is there's no monetization, no ads, no nothing. We just cover the industry out of kind of the passion for it. We have a weekly live show every Sunday morning, which you've joined us on. We do all kinds of other stuff on our YouTube channel, which has seen some amazing growth lately. If you like a channel that doesn't mess around with the nonsense, just really talks about tech and all gaming platforms and games. Check that out. Man, it's been awesome lately. Just a good ride with a lot of good people, good community, and some really solid growth. So that's what I'm up to.
You love to hear it. Again, yeah, I've been on your show. If you folks haven't checked out Season Gaming, give those folks a watch, a listen, a read. A lot of great content coming out of there. You're someone I always enjoy talking to, so excited to have you on today.
Thanks, man.
Before we start diving into all the topics, just some quick housekeeping stuff. If you are listening to the audio version of the show on your favorite podcast services, be sure to give us a review. We're a little late to the game there, so your reviews definitely help out. If you're watching live, hit that like button, share it out. Let's get straight into it. So I know a lot of people have been saying that, Xbox has been quiet. There hasn't been a lot of big Xbox news, but Xbox quietly secured one of the biggest exclusives of the year. And that's the Evil Dead beta, y'all. Evil Dead the game beta dropped exclusively on Xbox this
Huge,
Friday.
huge.
Huge, huge. And I was hoping we could talk about it. Unfortunately, we can't share our impressions, but if you are part of the Xbox Insider program, you can sign up right now. You can go play it right now. I highly recommend you do so. I'm hoping to be able to share some thoughts in the coming weeks, but for now, we can't say anything about it officially. But,
Other than you can't invert your controls in the beta.
oh no, yeah. And
Killing me.
I think that was by design. I think they were like, you know what? If you play inverted, you don't get to play it. All right. Get out of here. Retrain your brain and accept the truth of how to use sticks. All right. You inverted heathens. But that got me thinking because Evil Dead, the game, wasn't the only big asymmetrical horror related news we got this week. We also got the reveal of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, which is another asymmetrical 4v1 horror game that puts you in the shoes of Ghostbusters hunting ghosts using iconic ghost busting weapons, your proton pack, your ghost traps, all of that great stuff. We didn't get a lot, but we did get a few little bits and pieces of gameplay from this. So, Ains,
Yeah.
after this revealed trailer, after seeing that, Greg Miller, Rahul Kohli's involved, Rahul Kohli, where you at? Are you excited about this? Are you a Ghostbusters fan? And did this
Oh yeah.
reveal do anything for you as a
Yeah,
Ghostbusters fan then?
yeah, man. I'm old. So grew up with the Ghostbusters. I mean, the original movie is part of my childhood. Love the movies. I actually watched Afterlife recently. Really enjoyed it. But the reveal didn't do a whole lot for me.
Oh,
I'm always excited about a new Ghostbusters game, especially if it's good, like the remaster we got last year. But the I don't know. Your thoughts, man? 4v1 asymmetrical. Just I don't know. It just feels like that is it has to be done very well to work well, and it feels like those types of games tried to have their moment. We had the Evolves of the world, and there's a few other games that have really tried it, and I've never been fully engrossed in one that I didn't love purely out of love for the IP. So even though I love Ghostbusters, I'm not fully confident that this is gonna thrive with a big community. I don't know. Maybe I'm
yeah.
being negative, but
Yeah, it's tough to say because we are seeing a lot more asymmetrical horror games in the space right now. Obviously, Evolve was the first major one to drop out, and that was a game that I thought really struggled to find its balance.
yeah,
It had a really interesting idea. It looked beautifully. It was from the people who made Left 4 Dead, so there's some pedigree behind it. But then it came out, and there was just some fundamental problems with how it played. And the
yeah,
loop to me was not compelling, didn't feel great, and that was kind of frustrating. So I saw the Ghostbusters game. I had heard about the Ghostbusters game ahead of launch. I think actually Greg Miller accidentally revealed it on when he was on, but didn't say anything at the time. But yeah, Ghostbusters is an interesting one to do asymmetrical. Like if this was just
yeah,
a 4-player co-op game, I would have been all in, ready to go.
exactly.
Like I could see how that would work. I could see that being fun. But then you throw in the dynamic of the one person being the ghost. And I wonder what that loop is going to look like because it is hard to nail that loop. Dead by Daylight, kind of one of the most iconic ones,
Yeah,
but I feel like it's mostly iconic because of the cool crossovers that it gets. The gameplay
yeah,
loop, as much time as I've put into Dead by Daylight, the gameplay loop of just fixing the generators is kind of boring, kind of kind of annoying after 5+ years. So I'm hopeful. I wasn't blown away per se by what we saw by the reveal for Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, but as a Ghostbusters fan, as a fan of asymmetrical horror titles, I'm hopeful. Hopeful that it's good. What?
yeah. That's the thing, right? It's like you've got the onus on making the game fun comes a lot on the one. Right? Because if you're just four teaming up and the one is either goofing off or not competent, I mean, they have to be kind of really into it. They have to be competent. They have to know all the mechanics. And that just becomes very challenging. It relies a lot on that one making the game fun for the rest of the people. And that's, I think, where they can get into trouble kind of easily. So,
Yes. So, what would your hopes be for the Ghostbusters game? What does it need to do to be a successful asymmetrical horror game that has a chance to sell Ains, who's been skeptical on the genre in the past?
I would say going back to the one, right? They have to make it very easy for the one to kind of put up a fight, if you will. Like allow maybe some PvE elements or maybe some assist characters, ghosts, what have you, for that one ghost. Make interacting with the environment very easy. Just make it easy and simple for the one to be competent. Because if you make it too complicated, then it's going to take far too long for people being the one. Excuse me to to really kind of understand it, and then you're going to have this really small slice of people that one like being the one, because as well as I do, a lot of people are going to want to be the Ghostbusters. So you
Oh
have to
yeah.
like being the one, and then you have to be learn it and be good at it, and I think that's a tough ask. So the less barriers of entry they can make for, and the kind of encouragement to want to be the one and to make it easy to be good at, I think is the only way this is successful.
Yeah, it is a delicate balance because
Yeah,
when I play these games, I want to be part of the co-op squad. I usually have a gang of friends
yeah.
who want to play together, and so I'm almost never the one. Almost never the one. Don't get a lot of practice with the one. And so that is where things get interesting is like you have to find the people who want to play this multi asymmetrical multiplayer game alone. and by themselves. And
Yeah.
so is Ghostbusters that? Because quite frankly, like when I saw the gameplay of the Ghostbusters in this, I was excited. All the iconic gadgets. But
Yeah,
when I
yeah, yeah.
saw the gameplay of the Ghost, I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look fun. That doesn't look
Exactly.
like what I want to do at all." So
Yeah.
hopefully with these games, they also incorporate like an AI mode. So you can just squat up and you don't
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
necessarily worry about the human element in there, and you can just squat up, enjoy it as a cool little round based co-op experience,
Yeah.
because that has been the problem that some of the other games have struggled with. Dead by Daylight. Still, I tried to matchmake when the new Ring update dropped a few days or
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
week ago. It took me 5 minutes to match. It took me 5 minutes to solo queue as a survivor. And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh man, that's not a good sign when you have this big crossover come out, and with crossplay turned on, it takes 5 minutes to matchmake." And that's something that Dead by Daylight has struggled with in the past, is they have this imbalance of how players queue to play the game, and
Yeah.
that hurts the player base. Um, what were your thoughts on Friday the 13th? That one that you played, got into?
Played it a little bit. I had a friend who was really into it, who would always try to get me to play it, you know what I mean? And I think we all know it was a little janky, right? It had
Oh yeah.
it
Oh yeah.
was it's really rough around the edges, especially at launch. They did some good work on it, but I don't know. I think that's a little more so if you think about the Ghostbusters, right? What's iconic about the Ghostbusters is the Ghostbusters themselves and their gadgets, as you said. The ghosts aren't iconic. Everyone knows Slimer, but he's not
Yeah.
iconic, right? Um, Whereas if you think about Friday the 13th, what's iconic about it is Jason. So I think you kind of and you know people want to be Jason hunting down the teenagers at the camp, and so I think that was a little easier for people, wanting to be Jason. Whereas in this conversation, now you've got someone who just wants to be a random ghost.
Mhm.
It's kind of strange. So I mean, Friday 13th was okay. I wish that they wouldn't have abandoned it so early. I know that the realities of the situation and the player count and the financials all come into play there. But I'm we keep joking about Evil Dead. Like I'm super excited to see how Evil Dead does, because it just feels like that is a more approachable setup for a tenure of a game than what we've seen out of some of these other ones.
Well, you see, Evil Dead for Game Pass. That is the get. That was the one I was pushing when it was originally scheduled for February. I was like, put it in Game Pass with the
Yeah.
multiplayer element. It's going to be a hit. Now that it's dropping in May, let's do it. Let's push for Evil Dead in Game Pass. And it doesn't mean anything that's being tested currently on Xbox via the insider thing at all in that regard. But clearly Xbox is interested in this. So I'm pushing for it. I'm a champion for it, and if it happens, boom,
Yeah.
biggest multiplayer game of 2022. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean it's a perfect game for Game Pass, as you're alluding to. I mean, the games like that need population, right? I mean, all games need population, but you know what I mean. A game like that specifically is better when more people are playing it. So, yeah, let's hope. Let's hope.
Let's hope that's a game that would live and die by its community. So we got to
Yeah.
make sure, got to pump those numbers up. And again, can't wait till I can talk about it, because I have some thoughts for sure as a huge Evil Dead fan. Let me get to a quick super chat here from Hey Blinken. Hey Miles, I literally had to uninstall Evil Dead because of no inverted controls. I
See?
started FPS console games with GoldenEye, which see, that's it. That's your problem. Like that, my wife is the same way. Everyone I know who does inverted is because of GoldenEye. And GoldenEye, as much as I loved it, it's the devil. I played GoldenEye. I played GoldenEye growing up, and my brain was still like, no, what on earth? As soon as I had an option to not do inverted, I'm not flying, all right? When you're flying, I get it. I can totally get inverted. When you're aiming a gun, come on now. Down should not be up. I'm sorry.
It's all about tilting your head. You push
Yeah.
forward to look down and pull back to look up.
Okay, okay. See, yeah, that hurts my brain to try to like think about that. In some other asymmetrical multiplayer horror news, we got an update on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. So, Ghostbusters is being developed by Ilphonic, who developed Friday the 13th, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre is being published by Gunn, who published Friday the 13th. So there's this interesting synergy here between these developers and publishers, and they are going back to the licensed asymmetrical horror well with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they revealed basically the breakdown of the four main characters we're going to play. We still haven't seen any official gameplay for this. We haven't seen anything except for like a screenshot of all of their asses in like 70s jeans. We did get that, so that's something.
Yeah, well, first let's not talk about the new movie, because oof.
Oh,
Yeah, that was oof, man. I should have listened to you. I should have listened to you. One thing I forgot to mention with Ghostbusters, real quick, is Ilphonic, and I certainly don't want to disparage developers, but what happened with Friday the 13th was, one example. But remember, Ilphonic also made Predator Hunting Grounds, and
yes.
that game was not again. I don't like to kind of poke fun, but that game was almost dead on arrival. I mean, I played it for 10 minutes. I think a lot of people did that, and it was like, okay, we're done with this. So that is partially what concerns me about Ghostbusters too. I need to see that Ilphonic can develop a game that launches, is ready to go, and has decent mechanics. You know what I mean? Because I don't know.
Yeah,
Texas Chainsaw.
I
Go
checked
ahead.
out Predator Hunting Grounds via PlayStation Plus.
Exactly.
And yeah, I played a couple rounds. It wasn't bad. It had some really cool ideas, but yeah, I think part of it was the source material. It's a hard thing to transition into an asymmetrical multiplayer game. And a part of it was just I didn't care for the loop, really. Like I
Yeah.
didn't care for how big the maps were. I didn't really care for the overall first person shooter meets horror survival thing. So yeah, I understand the skepticism there because again, Friday the 13th, as much as I loved it, and I absolutely loved how it managed to capture the feeling of being in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And playing that game in game chat is one of my favorite video game memories because you're creeping around with your friends, you're whispering to each other so that Jason can't hear you, and there was this really amazing experience with that. I did
Yeah.
not get that experience at all with Predator Hunting Ground.
No.
Not
No.
even a little bit.
The fact that it was PS Plus and died like immediately, I mean, pretty much says it all. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre again is you've got a very similar situation, right? I mean, the iconic characters, Leatherface, and you've got a situation where if you create a survival type of aspect with a group of people trying to get away from Leatherface, I mean, you got a very, very similar setup to what Friday the 13th was, right? So it's really going to come down again. You've said it multiple times now, but these games, it comes down to the gameplay loop. When you log in, whether you're Leatherface or you're a survivor, and you say a match is 15 minutes on average, whatever it may be, right? What are you doing in that 15 minutes, and is it interesting? Is it intriguing, right? Is it fun, and does it make you want to immediately load up and play another match? And
Exactly.
that's where a lot of these games struggle. It's like, well, the ideas aren't bad, the IP's not bad, there's some cool features and stuff, but do you want to continue playing it match after match? And I don't think that's necessarily been fully solved yet. As much as I thought Friday the 13th, to your point, the recreation of Crystal Lake and Jason and being hunted and kind of the cabins and everything was awesome. It was really, really cool. And I know there's a core community that loved that game to death.
Hmm.
But I just, on a broad scale, I don't think they've nailed what it means to just, have a broad community just want to keep playing it over and over again, match after match. I don't know how. I don't have the answer. Someone's got to solve that equation.
Somebody's got to figure that out. And
Yeah.
that I really wonder what the loop of Texas Chainsaw Massacre would be. Because that's another one I'm having a hard time picturing. Is it just like Friday the 13th where we are in kind of that's the south of the United States in the 70s and we are trying to escape a farm? Like what are we trapped at first? Like are we captured and we have to escape from the basement and like find a way to escape this house? What do you
Yeah.
think the gameplay loop is?
I don't know. Just don't get on the bus, apparently.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, I don't know. That's the exact question, right? What would be most interesting to play? That you start captured and you have to do like an escape room before you die? I don't know.
I
How do you
think
make that? How do you make that interesting?
See, I think that angle to me is more interesting than just taking Friday the 13th foundation and making that Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Sure.
because that's always the loop of Texas Chainsaw Massacre as as the survivor is you are captured unwittingly. You're in a situation where you have to break free from this crazed family. And I
Yeah.
think having that dynamic and trying to collaborate with your friends to, you know, unlock someone else's handcuffs, like one key's in your room and you can go and unlock your friend who's trapped. I think something like that would be a little more interesting than just having the open map of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, especially if if you kind of do a map that includes like the mansion or the big house, right? And you had a bunch of different hallways and rooms and maybe passages you could sneak through and different levels. And then there was parts of outside. If you kind of make an interesting map that has a lot of ways to kind of get around it, that could be interesting, right? Because then you'd have to communicate with the survivors of, I'm going to hit this passage over here. And oh, to your point, I found a key. And yeah, I think that could be a lot better. But again, man, it's all down to that design and how they make that interesting.
All that loop is going to make or break the game. But it is interesting to see so many survival horror games, and with Evil Dead coming out, or the beta dropping this week, and the Ghostbusters game getting revealed this week, and an update to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, I figured we had to touch on
Yeah,
it
man.
a little bit.
It's cool to see all these horror games popping up for our favorite IPs. That's cool.
Go.
Yeah.
I'm a big horror fan. Keep them coming. Horror multiplayer, I don't care if it's bad. I'll play it at the very least. At the very least, you have my interest, all right? But then it's up to you to sell me, keep me hooked, keep me engaged.
Yeah.
Next big topic is probably the most fascinating little nugget of information we got from GDC this week for Xbox fans. And that comes via a panel with Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond about kind of the business approach to Xbox and some interesting insights into Xbox Game Pass's growth, its success, and then this kind of boon they've seen with independent development on the Xbox platform as well. So the overall panel was about 23 minutes, and there's a lot of stuff to go into, but I've pulled some key notes here that we're going to dive into. So bullet points here, just a quick breakdown of what you can expect if you haven't watched this yet. So according to Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer, members play 40% more titles after joining Xbox Game Pass. Members play games across 30% more genres after joining Xbox Game Pass. And on average, there was an 8.3 times player lift after a back catalog game comes to Xbox Game Pass. And for new games from large publishers, 3.5 times players has a 3.5 player lift compared to similar games not on Game Pass. And then similarly, there was a 15 times player lift for new indie games and a 3 times lift for games launching on Game Pass compared to Steam. And one more bullet here. Indies have also seen a 300% increase in revenue generation since 2017. So obviously, a lot of figures, a lot of numbers, kind of boring for the average person. But I want to talk about this, provide some context. So when you first saw all of these figures break, what were your initial impressions on the messaging that Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond were trying to get across to the community?
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing about this is, for those of us that have really been paying attention to Game Pass and kind of studying it for a while now, right? These stats are pretty similar to what we've seen for the past couple of years. I think the most surprising one, although when you really think about it, it's not as surprising, is the 15 times player lift for indies. But one of the things we always talked about, Steam's talked about it, Xbox has talked about it, is there's so many games being developed now, right? The curation of those games and getting them in front of people is really challenging, especially if it's not a big AAA release or a known IP. So this random little game comes out no one's ever heard of before. If you just put that on the Xbox store, the odds of it really catching fire are slim. Same with Steam. But if you put it on Xbox, on Game Pass, I mean, and it's part of a 3-game release one week, then a lot of people are going to check it out automatically, and I think that's fantastic. But the figures themselves are really, I think what's most interesting to me is that as Game Pass has grown, even from less than 10 million to 15 to 20, 20 plus, and nearing 30, these figures have really been almost flat. So I did like a deep dive analysis video on Game Pass like nearly 2 years ago. And when I look at these figures, they're almost the same as they were then, despite, all these other big things going on. So it's almost a no-brainer, really. And I think it's pretty clear to me that Xbox is, I mean, it's clear to everyone that Xbox is pushing Game Pass, but The financials around it are really right now in a early subscription phase where you're all about reinvesting that revenue to gain subscriber count, right? Because ideally, Phil and the team have 50 million plus. Because once you get to a certain number, I don't know what that number is for big publishers, say at 2K or whoever. Once you get to 40 million, 50 million, then it becomes impossible to ignore. Which I think in that vein makes the 3.5% lift, or 3.5 times, excuse me, 3.5 times lift for games launching on Game Pass compared to Steam the most interesting, because now you're talking about big games potentially up to AAA games that, let's take MLB The Show, for instance. We saw that launch last year on Game Pass, right? And they saw the most players they've ever seen, which should have been kind of expected. New platform, Game Pass,
Hmm.
but it's a game where their continual revenue on that game, you get your initial sales bump, but then most of the revenue on sports games nowadays are the card mode, the legacy mode, the franchise mode, right? And obviously, when it comes to that, Sony and the publisher really will take a hit on getting the game into more players' hands, because they know even if 5% of people get addicted to that mode, the revenue's on the back end. So there's a lot of ways to break down these statistics, but one thing is for sure. I mean, Game Pass isn't going anywhere. It's wildly successful. People love it, and it is, people always ask, can it be sustained? And I don't see any reason why it can't.
Yeah, these figures here are designed to show publishers, to show players, and to show developers the perks of putting a game in Xbox Game Pass. When they talk about the 3.5 times lift, they are specifically saying like, "Hey, big publishers, if you put your game into Game Pass, as we've seen with Square, as we've seen with other large publishers, it will do well. In fact, will do better than it's done previously." And those are the kind of